Okay. Today we're going to hand out paper and pens. And what we're going to do is have a quiz on creation versus evolution. We gave this to Ozark Family Camp. And you thought you all were going to get off easy to sit there, take a little nap. But no, you're going to have to answer questions. And then we're going to go over the answers. You may not agree with me on all of them, but that's all right. We know that science changes. First of all, we're going to discuss a historical controversy. When I was 10 years old, I went to a small country school in Illinois, and one afternoon, the principal called us all in, and he said this, on bleachers in the gym, and he said that the president had been assassinated. So you're probably wondering what president was that? It wasn't Abraham Lincoln. It was actually John F. Kennedy, November 22nd, 1963. So the controversy is who killed President Kennedy. Obviously, this is less than 60 years ago. It should be straightforward. They issued a Warren Commission report on it, 888 pages, and they concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald was the one that had killed President Kennedy from the Texas School Group Depository. You can see right here, Lee Harvey Oswald was killed 2 days later by Jack Ruby. And because of that, there was a lot of controversy. Who actually killed President Kennedy? Was he acting alone? Were there multiple shooters? Who was the assassination carried out by? Was it KGB, CIA, Lyndon Johnson, Vladimir Putin? Who was the one that killed President Kennedy? So this was only less than 60 years ago. We have thousands of eyewitnesses, many people could testify. So as we think about the creation-evolution controversy, this occurred much more anciently than this, a longer time period. If you believe in biblical creation chronology given in Genesis, in the range of 6,000 years ago. If you think only naturalistic mechanisms are responsible, it would be in the range of 13.8 billion years ago. So, John F. Kennedy assassination, 58 years ago. There were thousands of eyewitnesses saw it on television, controversies abound. But if you look at creation, that's a lot longer, 6,000 years ago. We have one eyewitness, God, that put it into his word so that we know the truth, I believe. But if you don't believe in God, many people say that Big Bang occurred 13.8 billion years ago. There were no eyewitnesses to it. Okay, so here you see the events, creation versus evolution, time period, the origin of the universe, 13.8 billion years ago, if you believe in evolution. The origin of Earth is 4.5 billion years ago. Multicellular life in the Cambrian explosion, 540 billion years ago. The origin of mankind, this is somewhat controversial. It's in the range of 200,000 to several million years ago. The origin of civilization in the range of 6,000 years ago. So what we actually know, the origin of civilization, creation and evolution do agree. Eyewitness for evolution, now the eyewitnesses for creation, we believe that God was the creator. Obviously, he wrote about it in his word. Okay, 25 questions. I hope everyone has a pen. And keep your own score. Some of you have seen this before. If you went to Ozark Family Camp, such as my brother Dan. But he didn't do very well. So, first question, I'm just going to go through these, ask the questions, and then we're going to go back through, and I'll give you the answers. According to modern cosmology, dark matter and dark energy compose what percent of the matter and energy of the universe? The answer A, 35, 95, 15. In the Big Bang cosmology, which was around 13.8 billion years ago, the speed of light is exceeded, or not. Is this true or false? The speed of light is exceeded. Number C, humans have received communication from an extraterrestrial intelligence. Is this true or is this false? 4, which picture shows the most likely way that life came from non-living matter? A shows God created Adam in the Sistine Chapel in Rome. B is the Miller and Urey experiment. Amino acids were created. C is a hydrothermal vent at the bottom of the ocean. And D is life came from another planet, or another galaxy, another solar system. Okay, 5, there are 2 types of science: observable science and historical science or evolutionary science. There is no discernible difference between the 2 types of science. True or false? 6, the tree of life, shown there on the right, shows how life developed because descent from a common ancestor was established from the fossil record. True or false? Number 7, mutations in natural selection, that is survival of the fittest, leads to differential reproduction and new kinds of animals. Is this true or false? 8, God created the species of animals and plants perfect and immutable. Mutations in natural selection cannot produce new species or varieties of animals. Is this true or false? Some of these are a little tricky. Number 9, natural selection leads to loss of genetic information, not new or innovative information. Is loss of genetic information always bad? Yes. Why not? Number 10, natural selection acts to conserve order. That is, it removes defective organisms. Is this true or false? Number 11, how many generations would it take to generate a German Shepherd by breeding the French poodles together? Care to see the answers? 100 generations could not be done 3 times. Okay, number 12, evolutionists believe that new kinds of animals and plants require large changes in genetic material. The most likely result of large changes in genetic material is dead offspring. Is this true or false? Number 13, mutations to bacteria that make them resistant to antibiotics have negative side effects. This is why mutated bacteria are less robust than the original bacteria. Is this true or false? Number 14, 2 rows of embryos are shown below at a similar age of development. Row for A and B, which is correct, A or B? 98% of DNA is junk DNA. That is, it does not code for proteins. Non-functional DNA related to our evolutionary past. Is this true or false? Number 16, which state has thousands of fossilized buffalo skulls? Montana, Iowa, Nebraska, or no state? 17, according to radiometric dating, lava flows have been found to be very old. How old is this lava flow? 500,000 years ago, very recent, 200,000 years ago. 18, scientists have not been able to determine how soft tissues can be preserved for millions of years. Soft tissue has been found in dinosaur bones thought to be millions of years old. Is this true or false? Number 19, Lucy, Australopithecus, afarensis, is a missing link, quoted by evolutionists. To be transitioning to human, Lucy had to have a large brain case, or B, bipedal. Which did Lucy have? A, large brain case, B, bipedal, or C, neither. 20, 95% of fossils. Most fossils are found on land because we're land creatures, obviously. But 95% of fossils are marine creatures. Is this true or false? 21, convergent evolution points to a common designer rather than to common descent. Is this true or false? The convergent evolution is evolution that eyes of man, squids, very similar to camera, but they obviously did not have a common ancestor. Obviously, we live in different environments. So that's what convergent evolution. This tree trunk is now fossilized, was growing for millions of years as sediments accumulated around it. Is this true or false? 23. Which picture shows specified complexity? You can see both of them are complex, which shows specified complexity. 24. Specified complexity over time cannot increase without an intelligent design. Is this true or false? And 25. Is this automobile and engine the result of A, Darwinian evolution, no purpose, or intelligent? B, intelligent design, or C, unintelligent. Okay. So what we're going to do is go back to the start, and I'm going to give you the answers, and you write down how many you got. I have a senior high class at Colonial Hills, and they got over half of these correct. So let's see if you do.
What's the record?
The record, I think it was 23 or 24.
That's what we're shooting.
But those people had heard some of my lectures. I think many of you know Mark Costello, and Julie Costello, and Josiah Moffit are my son got the highest scores. Okay. So what is the answer to dark matter and dark energy compose what percent of the matter and energy of the universe? Does anybody want to take a guess?
B.
Okay, 95 is correct. So of the matter and energy that we see, only 5% of the universe consists of that. The rest is all dark matter and dark energy, which we have no way to experimentally verify. But it's required because of the Big Bang, hydrogen, helium blew up, essentially exploded, and to get stars and elements of higher proteins and protons, and neutrons, you needed dark matter so that you could form stars, galaxies, and so on. Okay, the second one, in the Big Bang cosmology, the speed of light is exceeded. Is that true or false?
The
And we
constant.
know that a lot of evolutionists say that the speed of light cannot be exceeded. And that's why they have a problem with saying that the universe is not older than 6,000 years. But in the Big Bang cosmology, there was a period of inflation right after the Big Bang in which the speed of light was exceeded by millions of times. That was when space and time expanded at millions of times the speed of light. So that is true. Humans have received communication from an extraterrestrial intelligence. True or false? Well, actually,
Depends on what you mean
it's
by.
true because we've received the Bible. God is spirit, and God is an extraterrestrial intelligence. Obviously, that was a little misleading. It's not ET. This is true God of the universe. Okay, which picture shows the most likely way life came from non-living matter? I would say that God created life. The Miller-Urey experiment created amino acids, but it was done in a reducing atmosphere. We know that our atmosphere is an oxidizing atmosphere. Hydrothermal vents or hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor are thought now to be one of the best possibilities, but man has not come close to creating or developing a living cell from non-living matter. And then D, because it's so difficult on Earth to create a living cell from non-living matter, that a lot of people have said panspermia, that is, life was seeded from outer space. I think that is the most likely way that it's happened. But we've had a search for extraterrestrial intelligence, studied a lot of instruments looking for life from outer space. We have not found anything as of yet. So I believe it required an infinite intelligence, a being of infinite power to create life. Okay, there are two types of science: observable science, evolutionary science. There is no discernible difference between the two types of science. True or false? Okay, this is false. For example, we know that we can check out gravity every time I drop my comb. It's going to go for the center of the Earth. But as far as knowing that the Earth is 13.8 billion years old, there's no way that I can verify that. So observable science is science that we can test, we can experimentally verify. Historical science or evolutionary science, we cannot. No one was here. Okay, the tree of life shows how life developed because descent from a common ancestor was established from the fossil record. This is true or false?
False.
This is false. We know that evolutionists believe there was an original cell, living cell, and then it gradually developed into more complex beings, culminating in man. But we know that the missing links, the transitional fossils, do not exist. The ones that do exist are controversial, and we'll discuss that a little later. Okay, mutations and natural selection, survival of the fittest, lead to differential reproduction of new kinds of animals. Is this true or false? This is false, because we know that it can lead to differential reproduction, but they do not lead to new kinds of animals. The Bible says that plants and animals were made after their own kind, and we believe that is true. That's what's been verified. Number 8 is similar. God created the species of animals and plants perfect and immutable. Mutations and natural selection cannot produce new species or varieties of animals. Is this true or false? This one actually is false. We know that there can be variation within the kinds. If you look at the dog kind, the wolf, coyote, other types of dogs. So there is variation within the kinds of animals. So new species and varieties of animals can be produced by mutations and natural selection or even artificial selection. Here it shows the finches with different sizes of beaks. You know that on the Galapagos Islands, there was a drought and some of the finches changed so that they had bigger beaks so that they could handle larger, tougher seeds. So there is variation within the kinds, but none of these finches became turtles or became gulls or anything. We know that within the kind, there is variation, but there is not new kinds that are created by mutation and natural selection. Okay, natural selection leads to loss of genetic information, not new or innovative information. This loss of genetic information always bad. That's correct. It is not always bad. For example, you see the two types of bears there. One is black bear, a brown bear, and one is a polar bear. The polar bear has lost the genetic information. They have different coat colors. But in the Arctic, that is good because if you're sneaking up on seals and you're a white polar bear, it's a lot easier. And if you're trying to sneak up on seals, it's a brown bear. And we also know another example would be blind cavefish. Now, eyes take a lot of energy, but in a cave, it's always dark. So blind cavefish, which have lost the ability to see, they don't put a lot of energy into their eyes, and their senses are more acute in other ways. So they're in that environment, blind cavefish are more fitted than fish that have sight. Of course, if the blind cavefish then go out into the world, into the regular environment, they would quickly be eaten up and would not be able to find food. So it can be advantageous in certain environments. Natural selection acts to conserve order. That is, it removes defective organisms. Is this true or false? This is true. It acts to conserve order and it removes defective organisms. My wife always likes me to ask this one: is this turtle male or female? This is a female. She always has trouble making up her mind. Okay. How many generations would it take to generate a German Shepherd by breeding French poodles together? Okay. The answer is B, it could not be done. Because the genetic that you select for poodles, you limit the genetic materials so much that it cannot revert back. You would need something more like a mongrel dog or something like that has a lot of genetic variety. Okay, evolutionists believe that new kinds of animals and plants require large changes in genetic material. The most likely result of large changes in genetic material is dead offspring. Is this true or false? Well, this actually is true. The most likely result of large changes is dead offspring. And you can see up there, this is a wild type Drosophila fly, and you can see as mutations occur. Remember that mutations are almost always uniformly bad for the species. And you can see there's one at the top, wingless, stubby wings, yellow body, white eyes, and then a weaker condition. So the more change you have in the genetic material, the more likely evolutionists say you are to get a new kind. It requires large changes to go from a cat to a dog, for instance. But due to those large changes, usually the offspring are most uniformly found dead. So they were able to get a fly that had 4 wings instead of 2, and obviously that's a beneficial change, right? The problem is that the second set of wings was not attached to any muscles. It was just sitting there. It's like if you had, they say that the mother needs 4 arms to deal with all the children, but if you had 4 arms but 2 of them just hung there, it would not be. So mutations, large mutations, genetic material result in death. Okay, mutations to bacteria that make them resistant to antibiotics have negative side effects. This is why mutated bacteria are less robust than the original bacteria. Is this true or false? This is true. In an environment that's not exposed to antibiotics, the original bacteria will be more robust than mutated bacteria. Okay, this is Haeckel's embryos. Two rows of embryos are shown below at a similar age of development, which is correct. B is correct. Haeckel was trying to show that we all go through an evolutionary series of development. And so he came up with pictures at the top A that show that everything looks pretty well the same. But the actual ones are shown in B. So Haeckel said that ontology recapitulates phylogeny. In other words, the development of the being during birth recapitulates or retraces the evolution of the evolutionary pathway. And that has been found to be incorrect. Okay, 98% of DNA is junk DNA. This is true or false? This is false, because today they said that only 2% codes for proteins, and so the rest is junk. But today they found at least 80% of the DNA is found to be functional, and I believe is that if you further study that they will find it all is functional. So you not only need proteins, but you need those proteins developing at the right time and in the right place. Okay, which state has thousands of fossilized buffalo skulls? We know that during the late 1800s that 30 to 60 million buffalo were killed on the Great Plains for their hides. They were left, you can see here, that's a hill of buffalo skulls. So which state has thousands of fossilized skulls? I guess Nebraska would be closer, but actually no state does. To have a fossil, you have to have preservation. It has to be very quickly, and then very hot water with minerals such as silicon dioxide or calcium carbonate have to flow through those skulls to replace them. And I believe that in the Great Flood, that's why we have billions of fossils today, because the Great Flood was an ideal way to preserve billions of fossils. But we didn't have those conditions on the Great Plains, so most of these degraded at the time. We cannot see them. Okay, according to radiometric dating, lava flows have been found to be very old. How old is this lava flow? Looks to be very recent. No, shoes are on fire and so on. That's one of the problems with radiometric dating. If you date flows, lava flows that have been recorded in, say, the 1850s or so, if these will date as being maybe 500,000, 2 million years old, and obviously known ages can't be verified by radiometric dating. How do we know that unknown ages are correct by radiometric dating? And some of these have big problems. Potassium argon is noble gas, very slippery. Uranium lead, we know that uranium is soluble in water. That's how they produce it. Uranium fake in some areas. So some of these have big problems. Okay, scientists have not been able to determine how soft tissues can be preserved for millions of years. Soft tissue has been found in dinosaur bones thought to be millions of years old. True or false? This one is true. How old on the evolutionary time scale are the dinosaurs disappear? How many millions of years ago? Was it? Does anybody have a guess? What's that? 65 million is correct. The KT boundary, Cretaceous Tertiary boundary, they thought that it's a meteorite hit the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, and this at least is part of the cause that all the dinosaurs died. that they thought 65 million years ago. But today, we can cut up dinosaur bone and find soft tissue, blood cells, flexible blood cells, etc., that show this cannot be millions of years ago. Part of the problem is if you look at the environment in which they're found, such as Montana, it gets very hot, it gets very cold, so there's a lot of changing of the environment and the tissue should not be preserved in that kind of environment. Okay, number 19, Lucy, Australopithecus, afarensis, had to have either a large brain case or be bipedal, which did Lucy have? They C is correct, neither. The evolutionists agree that Lucy did not have a large brain case. And so they say that she was bipedal, but actually, honestly, no one has ever seen Lucy walking around. But they do believe it was around 3 million years old. They found human, what they say are human footprints, 200 miles to the south, leaving Kenya. And they said, well, it's the same age, therefore Lucy had to be bipedal. Well, if you believe that, as I do, that monkeys or apes and humans were created about the same time, that creation, that most probably was human footprints in the area 200 miles to the south. So if you look at the other features on Lucy, I believe that she was an ape, extinct ape, although evolutionists will argue with that. So I believe there are no true transitional fossils. Okay, number 20, 95% of fossils, find most on our land, are marine creatures. Is this true or false? This is true. In fact, even on top of Mount Everest, highest mountain in the world, we find marine creatures. And I believe this testifies to the global flood that occurred during Noah's time. 21, convergent evolution points to a common designer rather than the common descent. Is this true or false? This is true because it seems very difficult for both organisms if they descended from an ancestor, original cell, and then diverged throughout time, that they would have the same camera eyes. So I believe it points to a common designer rather than common descent. So if you hear the term convergent evolution, as you're reading the paper, almost all the media does support evolution. They will put out exactly what the evolutionary scientists tell them, but if you hear the term convergent evolution, think common design, the God of the universe rather than common descent. Okay, this tree trunk, now fossilized, was growing for millions of years as sediment accumulated around it. Is this true or false? This is false. The evolutionists say, maybe an inch, 1,000 years will be deposited, and over millions of years you'll get these large thicknesses of sediment. But how could a tree grow for millions of years as sediment is accumulated around it? That's called the polystrate fossil. Which picture shows specified complexity? And the obvious answer is A. They're both complex. But A, obviously, we recognize Mount Rushmore, carvings of the presidents. And that's one reason that we believe that specified complexity takes intelligence. Obviously, an intelligent sculptor created those statues there. Okay, specified complexity over time cannot increase without an intelligent designer. Is this true or false? It is true. The specified complexity cannot increase without an intelligent designer. And obviously, we believe there's an infinitely wise, infinitely understanding, infinitely powerful designer. That is the God of the Bible. And finally, is this automobile engine the result of Darwinian evolution, no purpose, or intelligent control? intelligent design or unintelligent design? The obvious answer is C. Unintelligent design. This engine is a little too large. Okay, I hope you all did well. I'm sure that we have a lot of 25s, and I won't bother asking what anybody got. But hopefully this helps you to understand how creation is true. I worked for an oil company for 38 years. Oil companies obviously believe in old ages. And when I retired, I decided to look into some of this information. And as I looked into it, I believe more and more thoroughly that what the Bible says is certainly true. So we can trust the Bible. You don't have to get into science. Now, there is a lot of opposition. You go to school, Oklahoma State University or any of the state schools, they will teach evolution. They will not support creation. And also the government forbids creation to be taught or intelligent design to be taught in the schools. And the media certainly supports evolution. Even the more conservative publications support evolution. So it is going to be difficult. We had three young men in our chapel that we thought were following God, that went to the college and were exposed to evolution, and they became either agnostic or atheist. That's probably not the only reason, but certainly it is one contributing factor to leading you away from God. So we believe it is important that you do acknowledge that God is the creator and that what the Bible says is true. In a lot of Christian colleges, I just read a book on origins from Wheaton College. A lot of Christian colleges have pretty well gone the way of evolution. So you have to be careful. There's a lot of good materials out there. Answers in Genesis. If you're interested in geology, watch Michael Howard on YouTube. And there's a lot of other good Creation Ministries International that have good material that will help you keep your faith in the Bible. Because it is difficult today for young people, especially as you go to college, especially if you're in science, to keep your faith in the Lord. Okay, I guess I have about 10 more minutes, is that correct? Okay, we're going to just go through these next part quickly. This gives the contrast between creation and evolution. Obviously, creation in the beginning of God. Evolution in the beginning of the Big Bang, all matter was compressed to a dot smaller than a period on the page, matter and energy were in the beginning. Creation, we believe, is spiritual. It's the spirit, and they worship him, must worship him in spirit and truth. The spiritual and physical world, evolution, physical world only. Creation, God sustains the natural laws. Evolution, natural laws exist independently. They're just there. Creation, purpose, and design by God. God has created the earth to be inhabited. That's what God says. Evolution says there's no purpose, no design. When you die, that's it. You die. Creation, order before disorder. God created 6 days. He said at the end of that, the creation is very good. Evolution has disorder. Started out as a single cell, somehow fortuitously came together, and then gradually developed into mankind over time. Creation life is related in groups. God created animals and plants after their own kind. Evolution says all tree life is related to the tree of life, common descent. Creation, sin is bad. God has told us in commandments, you should not steal, you should not commit adultery, you should not murder. Evolution, sin is good. aim of evolution is to leave more descendants. So if you can murder your competition, you're better off. If you can steal their resources, you're better off. If you can commit adultery, you're better off. You'll have more offspring. Creation, death is bad. You know that. In man's sin, death came into the world, pain. Evolution, death is good. Survival of the fittest. Get rid of the unfit. Creation, mistakes are bad. You have mutations. Like if you're writing a computer code, we know that that's bad if you have mistakes, because it doesn't run. But evolution says mistakes are good. There have to be beneficial mutations, even though we've not seen them, that accumulate from natural selection, a selective process to create more organized and specified life. Creation, mistakes are selected against. We know the natural selection is a conservative process. It gets rid of those organisms which are unfit, whereas evolution says mistakes have to be selected for. That's how we get to more complex beings. And then creation, man is created by God. Evolution says man is all from apes, even though we do not have the transitional forms to show that. Creation time, 6,000 years, with the chronology of the Bible. Evolution time is billions of years, 13.8 billion years for the universe to start. And then creation miracles can occur. A miracle of new birth. Evolution, no miracles, there is no God. Creation, Jesus rose again, and we also will be resurrected. Evolution, no resurrection from the dead. And finally, creation requires faith in God, whereas evolution requires faith in man. If he has read the fossil record correctly, that he has read everything correctly and come up with the right interpretation, I would rather trust God. So let's close with a word of prayer, and hopefully this has been beneficial. I believe that creation, true science, is validated by the Bible. Now, there's many scientific speculations which go against the Bible, but I believe as time goes on, we discover more things, and we have been discovered that the Bible will be shown